I kept thinking that there was something I was forgetting to discuss. And I just kept saying, what's missing? Because there was an important story that I knew I wanted to address either yesterday or today. And then I remembered that it was the border wall. For those of you who aren't familiar, we've been in a government shutdown for the last 2 days because um, the Republicans in the House passed a bill that gave Trump the $5 billion he wanted for the border wall, but the Senate wouldn't do it. Um, and this notably came after they had already passed a bill that there was bipartisan support for, and Trump refused to sign it. So now we're stuck with being in a shutdown. But there was a person who no one had ever heard of, at least I hadn't, named Brian Colfage, who decided to unilaterally pay for the border wall by setting up a GoFundMe. Um, and within 1 week, it's raised 16 million out of the desired 1 billion that he's posted as the goal. Now, I actually, when I saw that number, I got really impressed. And, whoa, my God, they're going to be able to do this. But then I thought, and I said, wait a second, how many millions are in a billion? Which is the answer that is 1,000. So that they're not even what 1% of the way there. Because even if they get to a billion, they still have to get the other 4 billion. And at this rate, but let me tell you something. I've said it before. I'm someone that doesn't think the wall is important. I don't think illegal immigration is even really this an issue that is as big as some of the other stuff we have going on. But I want you to really think about this. Let's say you think the wall is a brilliant idea. You are someone that says, yes, we need that. Yes, that needs to happen. This is definitely a policy we need to back and get behind. Theoretically, if you wanted this to come into effect, wouldn't you find it suspicious that you have a person that no one's ever heard of that admits to having no affiliation to Trump in his post asking for this? And also, wouldn't you think to yourself, wait a second, if I want the government to enact this policy, can begin construction on the wall with my money, why would I give it to a non-government official? Well, I'm going to read what he wrote, what his, explanation was of, why this is happening. If I can even find it. Well, I'm on the page right now, but I don't have the little thing written out. But he was basically saying that we the people elected Trump to do this as a big campaign promise of his, and that we could get this we could get behind it and make sure that it was put into effect. Really saying that the public could fund it in the place of Congress, in their dispute they're having. But I want to know from either of the two people that's in here, do you honestly believe that it's smart to give a guy who has nothing to do with the government or Trump or any person in power this money in a GoFundMe that's in his name? Does anyone think that's smart? I want to know. Again, regardless of if you like the wall, if you hate it, what is your position on that? I'm telling you what I think will happen. If they reach a billion, it's not going to be for a couple of years because they've been having someone donate every couple of minutes all week, which is why they were able to raise millions of dollars in such a short amount of time. Um, it's going to either reach a billion within next year or the year after that, and then he's going to say, okay, we're now a fifth of the way there and start it all over again, or he's going to pocket it and disappear. And look, a lot of people have said that when I say that I'm being cynical and as an identified liberal trying to dissuade people from participating in this, I am not against unelected individuals trying to fund something that they want to see be made a policy of their government. Quite the opposite. But I want people to think critically about whether or not it's a smart idea to say, hey, I want my elected officials to build this thing let me give this money to some random person that has nothing to do with any of this. And the other kind of sub note, kind of significant thing. I thought to myself when I was looking, I said, "Wow, 16 million. Imagine how many people could be put through school with that, or just how many jobs could be created. Like just of all the things to waste that on. And again, not the wall itself, but the fact that you're giving it to a guy that has nothing to do. Oh yeah, I know Bezos and his little scams, Marco, where he purposefully will stuff money in his pockets and have his own workers living off food stamps because he underpays them. I know that. And they hire people part time so they can get away with not paying them a full wage. All the little scams I'm aware of, and that's awful and terrible. But we're talking about regular people all getting together and saying, this thing cost $1 billion. Let's just keep donating. And while we do that, we're going to donate all this money to a GoFundMe, not started by Trump or by, what's her name? The Homeland Security Secretary, Nielsen or whatever. It's just some random guy no one's heard of. And then you have to think to yourself, what is the legality behind what he's doing? Because let's say they raise $1 billion, or they raise enough money to where he actually follows through and gives all this to Trump. um, wouldn't there be some problem with trying to construct a wall on the public land? Like, wouldn't you have to think to yourself, wait a second, aren't there courts involved in making sure we have the jurisdiction to do that? That's what I'm saying. These people are not being rational when they give money to this thing. It's just, well, I don't like, all of these illegal immigrants, which, whatever. Um, but rather than try to coalesce around people with some level of validity, because see, even if I, again, think that the policy isn't the right way to go about things, I would not question the sincerity of the person behind it if it were the Homeland Security Secretary. She's a person who is a government official, someone that is in a position of power to actually do something relating to the topic that they find themselves wanting to give millions of dollars for. Marcus says, can't they just use eminent domain? Um, I would say yes, but we've, had with multiple things that Trump has done relating to immigration court orders. So you had, the striking down by a judge. You get my point, Marco. I could see where that could come from, but there still is not enough addressed on the part of the person, Colfidge, whatever his last name is, who started this, nor the people who are supporting it. So it's just this thing where both ways it kind of seems like they're just like it's loads and loads of people just rolling the dice. And notably, when it comes to the number of people that have donated, I want to just kind of point this out too. I had a person who said, "Oh my God, they've raised 16 million. I guess a lot of people want the wall." Does anyone remember, not the exact number, but just a rough estimate of the number of people that voted for Trump in the last presidential election? Does anyone remember? Just guess how many millions. Just give me a random number. Marco, you're probably the only one that's actually going to put out a number. I'll just say that 62 million that voted for him in the election. So currently, the wall has had 2,069, 763 people donate. So that's not even what 1% of the people that actually voted for him. And what that tells you is that, because again, if this were such a popular thing that people really 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 wanted in massive droves, why doesn't it have it can't crack a million? And look, again, to be fair, it's only been a week, and it may eventually get to that number. But why would it take a month or 2 months? Remember, this thing's been talked about. It's been on the news. It's been brought up, mentioned. So people know what this is, and they're still not giving to it. So again, when that 200,000 plus may seem like a really big deal, but if you factor that in with the total number of votes that Trump obtained during the election cycle, you realize, not really that big of a thing. And that's why I find it so comedic that we actually have people who are trying to use this as proof of the rebuke. There's always going to be loads of people who support anything. You could probably go outside tomorrow and say, let's reduce high school by 2 grades, and there'd be people who would back that. Hell, if you put it in the right word of phrase or just go into it, you might actually get people to explain to, have a real reason to get abort that. But there's always someone who is accepting of any policy, regardless of what it is. All right. Thank Mars says, good day, folks are only allowed to donate to Trump's GoFundMe wall. But that's the thing. It's not Trump's. Thank Mar. It's this amputee, this veteran. We all respect their service, but his name is Brian Kolfage, and he is not a public official. He's not someone that has anything to do with the Trump administration. So it's literally a bunch of people who saw a thing on GoFundMe called "We the People Will Fund the Wall" and said, "Hey, that sounds like a good idea. Let me donate to it," without doing any research for the guy, asking themselves how this would be applied. Like, I go on his page and he says, as verification of who he is, at least he did up until right now, it's now coming up blank. He would say, "Oh, I have a blue check next to my Facebook page." Like, how that validates that you're going to turn over millions of dollars to the government. And I want you to really think about how insane this is. I did this stream earlier about being a supporter of Sanders. Let's say I put up a GoFundMe and I say, who's a good example? Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, Warren 2020. So I call myself the Warren 2020 draft fund, and people start donating to it. They give me, let's not even 16 million, 8 million in a week. Remember, I'm someone that has nothing to do with her, but I tell you, oh no, I do videos and you know who I am because you can see my face. You don't think that if someone is given $8 million, they would risk everything in their life, including, becoming a criminal, just to get away with that money? Trump said Mexico is funding the wall, so I figured, well, it looks like it's not going to be the case, thank Mar. God, it's just so funny to watch people actually pull up clips of him saying that, and then it turns out to be the reverse. Just like there's an old article from, I think, October of last year where Trump said that Kelly would be his chief of staff for his last 7 years in office. And now he's not even, we're not even, it's like just a year later and he's gone. So it's always amusing to read an article and then they do the complete reverse, or the opposite turns out to be the case. But yeah, think more. No one is asking themselves, how would this be applied? Is this guy legitimate? I think if worst case scenario is they get up to halfway to that money, or maybe to $1 billion after however long, and then he says, "Thank you very much." The thing goes down, and then people start asking, "When are you going to give it to Trump? Have you given it to Trump? Have you given it?" And it just just disappear. Oh my God. This is insane. We can't get 16 million to pay off some student loans, but we can get it for a non-government official saying, "I will give this money to the government to fund the wall." A person we have no reason to believe. Yeah, think about it. You don't think people have people rob banks and they only get sometimes 100,000 or a million. You don't think someone would just completely, as you said, cut and run over 16 million? That they were just given after posting, that all they had to do to get it was just post a little GoFundMe and go on TV a couple of times, go, "Yeah, I'm real. I'm somebody that's actual and legitimate." Yeah. This is surreal. Well, we do need sovereignty. We are not even giving. Look, I'm not. Again, I'm trying to approach this from the perspective of someone that's not trying to go and tell you you can't have what you want. So, regardless of what you think of the wall, Marco, ask yourself, if you wanted that to happen and you believed in that policy, would you give your money in, to help that policy to someone that has nothing to do with the people who can actually enact that policy? A random person that you've never heard of before. Do you think that's a good idea? I just hope what I'm saying is not lost on deaf ears. Um, because again, the main issue here is, who the hell is this guy? Thank Mars says free college means first money sent is on houses and cars. Yeah. No, but this thing is getting, it is slowly starting to dwindle in its donations. I noticed that because when I was looking at it on I believe it was Thursday, it was every time you refresh the page, just now, and now it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And I think it's really amusing. Well, not haha funny, but it's kind of interesting to point out that the biggest donation was from somebody that gave 50,000. Another person gave, and then the next one, the smallest one afterward, was 13,000. And what I thought, was compelling is that we oftentimes talk about corruption and how the politicians will sell you out if it means getting a couple of coins from their donors. This is probably the most non-corrupt thing that Trump has done since winning the primary, because a rumor that a lot of his supporters like to push around is that, oh, he's not corrupt, which was true when he ran the primary, and then when he entered the general election in May of 2016, he reversed his pledge and started taking PAC money. So they for the rest of us, we realized that after the first 11 months of the campaign, he's been corrupt ever since. With them, they never caught on to that. So I'm saying that this is actual small donors, which, by the way, he had a thing on there where he said, don't post any fake names or they'll rescind your donation. And there was someone that put Hillary Clinton and all kind of other, monikers. I just want us working with other countries to help each other out if we are going to fix immigration. Fair enough. I just want you to understand what I was saying. Well, again, the senators passed a bill that was, funding of the government and had some way of addressing this too. Trump wouldn't sign it, so it's hard for me to even really blame Congress at this point. But I thought was so funny is that when they passed it, they said, okay, major crisis averted, and then he's like, yeah, no, and then Corker from Tennessee said, man, I'm going back to Chattanooga, and that means that he's effectively, like, I truly believe, at least as long as he, whether he gets reelected or not, we will not see a wall for another 2 years. Because remember, the Democrats are retaking Congress within 2 weeks. So it's over for the wall. Now, if he is able to win the House back in 2020, we might, have something else to think about. But I believe, I am very confident that for the entirety of his first and then, the eyes of some other people, only term, we will not see that thing. That'd actually be really retroactively amusing that the main thing he talked about during the campaign just never materializes while he's in office. Which is what I'm starting to think is going to happen. I mean, this session of Congress was really a failure. Like, other than the 2 Supreme Court justices and the tax bill, every single other major policy-based thing Trump pretty much never could get, or got kind of like a half measure of. You couldn't get a full-on Obamacare repeal, so you use executive orders and gut it. Marco says, you would think with having all of this technology, needing papers would go out the window. Yeah, but again, the system is screwed up, and people don't want to accept the fact that a majority of illegal immigrants come here legally and then overstay their visas. So regardless of if the wall is up or not, you're still going to be stuck with a majority of the reason that this problem is happening, because Congress won't fix it. You had the Gang of Eight try to do something 5 years ago, and that got turned down. So it's an issue that has to be solved by those that are continuously in power, and they're just not doing it. They want the insta fix instead. This is all a fake crisis anyway. That will may one day prevent Americans from escape. Oh, you mean, thank Mar, that it's going to stop people who want to, let's say, flee the country from being able to get out of here that are from here? I could see that happening. But I want people to figure out is that this is very fishy. If you think about it critically, if you say to yourself, wait a second, some random guy I've never heard of before wants me to give him $1 billion that he's going to shove in his pocket and then give to Trump, and I'm supposed to believe that. And no one's questioning this, at least out of the conservative commentators I've seen. None of them are going, hey, maybe if we're going to have a GoFundMe for this, it should be done by a government official. No one is saying that. So even if you like it, you're still possibly getting scammed. Oh my God. So again, best case scenario, I mean, it seems like either way we're screwed. This thing, they get the money for it, and then the guy actually does turn it over to Trump. And then, we figure out what the judicial process is. And then the worst case scenario, and the one that I'm thinking is actually going to happen, is they get to either $1 billion like the guy wants, or they get halfway there or a little bit of the way there. And he says, thank you, thanks for playing, and then shoves it in his pocket and disappears. Yeah, a door on the wall. Yeah. The beautiful door, as he called it. So I thank both of you for showing up. I kept thinking to myself, there's something I want to talk about, but I don't remember. And then here it is. So 16 million so far. This money could be used for so many other things, but Americans and domestic issues, or rather, Americans and the funding of domestic issues generally don't mix, unfortunately. So thank you.